Eric Smith here, and I'm very excited about this weekend here at Museum Week, Oroville, California 2021, and we're at the Lott Home. A very special guest here that's going to give us a virtual tour of the Lott Home, Frida Flint. And so, with no further ado,
come on in there, Eric.
All right.
Let us start in the parlor because this is what everybody wants to come and see.
Oh man, the parlor. It already sounds intriguing.
Yes, it does. And most of the furnishings here are not original to the house. They came later. But the fireplace was in the home and was augmented by the judge's daughter's husband years after. The portrait that you see on the wall there is of Charles Fayette, the judge. And when he came here, he was a lawyer, and he was with a friend, Warren Sexton. And as you do history readings, and you'll see those two names are tied together. This is his wife, who came a little bit later. He went back to meet her, and when he was out here originally, he was single. Imagine that kind of a life in those days. These are pictures of the family. This is the youngest child who died at the age of 3. And there is the oldest child, other than her, is Charles Fayette Jr. And this is Cornelia. This is the judge. And we're going to call this the picture of the wife again. The original piece in here is the judge's sword that you might be very interested in on the wall, above many ribbons and whatnot. And that is his Masonic sword. He was very instrumental in developing the Masons community here. The picture you see on this marble covered table is of the judge in his Masonic regalia, and the hat that's in the case there is one of his original hats. It's not make-believe for later. The hearth in the parlor was made larger when Cornelia and Jesse were married after the judge's death. And there is a gold nugget in there. And then we believe that these are rocks that he lapidaried from the trips that they made. They used to go in the car and they would go various places. He was quite a busy fellow. You will see, when you come here, you'll see musical instruments, and they are not original to the house because the story is the judge did not allow music.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. You know, you love musical instruments.
Yes.
And there's all these fascinating pieces that are here.
Yes, and what we see, we know that this desk is the judge's desk and chair that he used in his office downtown on Bird Street in the early days as the town was developing. The sign that is on the floor below the Victrola, which again is not an original piece, but the sign is, and that was in the window at the law offices of Lott and Sexton in the early days.
So Frida, when you say not original piece, it wasn't original in the home when Mr. Lott was here. But these are antiques nevertheless from the era. So they're
Well, these two pieces, the desk and the chair and the sign, are original pieces. They were used by them. The rest of the pieces are developed from a variety of gifts and are oriented to the times. And as we go through the house and into the hall, we'll see law books that did belong to the judge, and they have been saved, and you can see they're old and having been very well used. He was a lawyer when he came here. He became a judge later on, as law became the order of the day.
yes.
Now, this is a picture of, and you see this in some magazines, this is a picture where you can see how tiny the adults look in the picture, and that is the judge and his wife.
Interesting.
And their marriage certificate is there. This large room was added on later on as the children grew. There were 3 children. One did not survive childhood, but they had 2 adult children. And this room was added on later and became the parlor. And they also called this the death room because the judge died in here, and so did Jesse.
You know, one of the things that you shared with me that I thought was really fascinating was the fact that he knew Abraham Lincoln, contemporary at the time. I thought that was, and then I just love the story of this clock. So maybe tell us a little bit about the legend of the clock.
Well, the clock does come within the family, and it went from family to family to family, and there were a lot of Lotts in the family. And he had said, I think he had 6 brothers, and they all became doctors and attorneys. And but somewhere along the line, this clock was in a tavern, and the legend is that George Washington used to come and he would have dinner and stay there, and he would set his watch by the time on this clock. And none of the innards that make the clock work are within this clock, so it no longer works. But it is beautiful, and it's been as well cared for as we can possibly do. There's a whole other story, and you'll have to read some of the books about that to find those stories.
And you mentioned the book, so you're actually writing the book.
I am writing
about the Lott Home.
It contains that, yes,
Yeah,
about the Lott Home and about the family. And these little interesting stories. They had a few friends for a while, and then they had a lot of friends, and they had a home up above Feather Falls and a camping place, and people used to come up there and visit with them all summer long. So they had a variety of people that came, and in reading that journal that was written by Jesse, you can see how many of the people who actually built Oroville, from a rough, tough, tavern-oriented, bar-oriented, miner-oriented, into a farming community that lasted for a very long time.
Oh, we're still here?
We're still here. We have oranges, and we produce a lot of other things, but the judge was one who brought the oranges here.
Wow, interesting.
And he had a farm up in Cornelia. So now the wallpaper is contemporary style, and it's very interesting to look at. Some people would consider it a little bit gaudy, but that's how it is. And I believe that the staircase that we see in this anteroom here is the back stairs to the upstairs. That's where the servants would come in, and I think it was probably easier for Cornelia with the damaged leg that she had when she came down the stairs. She had a good banister to hold on to.
Yeah.
So those are some of the interesting things. This is the way the doors were, apparently, and the furniture and all has been an accomplishment of many people gathering things that were of the times. This table comes from one of the Huntington family's homes in the Oroville area. She didn't like it here. It was too hot. So she gave it up. Now, there are still people living out there in that home. I'm not going to identify it, but it's out there. So there are lots of things to see. The furnishings are of the times, and it's a very interesting place to see and hear the story and see how it developed.
So how about the kitchen?
The kitchen.
Yeah.
The kitchen was an add-on later on. Kim Lee was the house servant, and he used to come in, and they used to have parties and gatherings, and if you were anybody, you had a Chinese servant in your home. And there is a picture in here of him. He was valued and loved in this family. He was a very interesting character. He just thought the world of Cornelia. Now this kitchen, this, I suspect, might have been servants' quarters back in the day. And everything in here is from donations over the years. And we have this beautiful stove. Imagine cooking and heating bathing water on that. And
times have changed a bit.
oh yes, they have. I really like my shower.
But, and you talk about donations, and we're just so appreciative of you, being a resident historian and taking all this time. And the docent program, just want to just mention that. We're going to talk about that as we go through these various virtual tours.
Great.
And just the value that they bring to, and being able to, maintain all this treasured history of our community, which you're very much a part of. And of course, you're in the middle of writing this book. But we would just want to reach out and encourage, if you're a person that just loves Oroville, loves our community, sign up for the docent program.
That's
and
right.
We're going to have a number. We're going to continue to talk about that, where people can connect to the city and get engaged with Oroville and the history, and do what you do, and just fall in love with the history.
It's really fun. It's really fun. And one of my favorite things is when the little kids come on a school tour. They come in, and some of them have never been in a home that had a staircase. I hear that over and over. They come in and they think that this is like a palace. To me it is, but it's a different kind of palace. And the children love to see, and they love to hear the stories and see the little things pointed out. They like my little cake here on the table, and that is not real. But they want me to cut it and have a piece of that cake. And I know what it's made of, so they don't want that.
And one of the other things important with our virtual tour, so we're skipping a lot of history. We're just kind of giving you some of the highlights. So,
they used to do their laundry outside in a great big pot, and then when they moved to some piece like this little kitchen area thing here, we have a little sink, and of course you didn't have a drain, not when it was original. And so they would catch the water. They did a lot of laundry there, carry it out, hang it on in good weather. And I can imagine this being a room where they hung a lot of laundry as well.
If I had to carry the water out, we'd be calling Roto-Rooter.
Well, we would need it. Yes, absolutely. And from some of the things that I have read about Ken Lee, he did not live here. He came early in the morning and he stayed all night. But he lived over in Chinatown, and he would come, and sometimes he and his friends would just kind of walk through the neighborhood and take in the action. Sometimes there were little romances taking place on porches and whatnot, the kind that we refer to for back in the day, where there would be a lady in one chair and a gentleman in a chair away from her about 6 feet. Now we know all about that now, but in those days, that was called courting.
Yeah. And we're practicing 6 feet. If you notice, we're trying to always practice our social distancing here.
We're attempting to maintain that.
Yeah, we've had our vaccines, I guess, and all that, but we're not supposed to depend on that completely, but we're trying to respect that social distancing and everything. So.
Well, people just seem to love it here, and there was a very active, very large docent program for a while. If you open this, this is like a giant bread box, but inside we keep old teacups that they used to bring their teacups with them and then donate them, and we would have cheese here. And that was one of the ways that they were able to build on and do the additions to the house that needed to be done, the repairs, and some of the furnishings and whatnot. This used to be, I believe that this was a sleeping porch back in the day, and then this was built in and electrified and all, and there is a reference to Jesse sleeping outside. And this is our gift shop, and that's one of the ways we maintain our building here. Those donations all go into a fund, and we get to do things here.
And that's one thing that's so amazing about Oroville. We're a relatively small community, and we have these 5 precious museums, which this is one of 4 more that we're going to be talking about.
And they're all wonderful. They're built and maintained by the people who have lived here over the years. And each one has an individual story, so we hope that people come and see all of them. It's hard to see them all in one day. You could probably make an arrangement to do that, but you have to plan ahead. Calling City Hall.
Right. And then also you mentioned that you can rent, I guess if you have events or weddings, you
Yes.
can rent, there's a kitchen out in the back area, a full kitchen.
A full kitchen. It's a
And,
very modern kitchen.
uh-huh.
Yes, very modern. So you can really do good cooking and storing of fruits and vegetables and salads and things, and serve it outside in the very large, I call it the gazebo out here. But there is a gazebo that's separate that sometimes we use for music, and people come and they have a wedding. We do a lot of weddings here. And I think we're probably not doing any weddings right now, but there's probably informal weddings that happen there right now.
It is a beautiful place. I
Yes.
know a friend
Mhm.
that had their reception here. And it's
Oh,
just
yes.
it's just a lovely place, a
is.
garden out there. And
It's a beautiful garden, well maintained, and we just have a great time. And in the springtime, the color here is incredible. There are lots of azaleas and not too many geraniums, but what we do have of geraniums, they're one of my favorite flowers, and we have that. We also have a little book, an album that I created that tells the story of the family from very early on, all within the home. And it's pretty interesting, I think.
so you'll have to come and
Have to
visit to
come
go
and
be able to
visit
go
and
through
see
all this
all of
amazing
these
history.
things. Yeah. So there's some wonderful things, and the community has loved this home for so long. And we definitely don't want to close it. We want it to be here for the enjoyment of everyone who comes to Oroville.
Mhm.
School kids love it. As I said before, they have never seen anything like this, most of them.
And so really to keep this place open, what we need people to get into that docent program. And
Right,
we'll do that
we do.
plug again.
We do,
Because that's just
yes.
such a valuable thing. And then
Mhm.
also for our local children, just to,
Mhm.
fall in love with our community, the history, just
Mhm.
all of the value that comes with, I think, a rich heritage, which we have here.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I just really want to thank you for, you preserving that.
Well,
being a part
You're
of
welcome.
Oroville.
It's been my joy to be able to participate. And the other docents, they all feel the same. And each docent has a favorite museum, but they are capable of going to any of the museums and giving a tour, really. My favorites for myself are this one and the Pioneer, because that's where I'm looking at things now for my books. But
Super. Well, there's a hole
that's it.
upstairs.
Yeah.
We're not going to venture up there.
Bathroom up there. That'll
Yeah.
be a big surprise when you come
Yeah.
and see it. And there are original pieces of furniture up there too, and beautiful floor, and it's a great place to come, spend an afternoon, learn a little bit about what's gone on here in town. Lots of stories that have never been told.
Yeah, and probably a good many of
I
them.
think
So if you
so.
want just a rich afternoon of history,
Mhm.
come and spend some time with Frida or one of the other docents.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you very much. This is one of our tours here, virtual. So I hope you've just enjoyed this moment here that you've had with Frida and myself.
Thank you, Eric, very
Yes.
much. I've enjoyed doing this, and you've been a great person to partner with on this.
Well, thank you. All right. Thank you.